Hello there. Today we're going to be going over test-driven development with the case study of FizzBuzz, which is a common interview question for kind of juniors, that kind of thing. So our requirements at the very top, we need to return fizz when the input is a multiple of 3, return buzz when an input is a multiple of 5, return FizzBuzz when a multiple of 3 and 5, otherwise return the input as a string. For the moment, I've just created a blank function here. It takes in an input. What's most important about test-driven development is that you write one test at a time, make sure it fails, then write the code to fix it. So here I've got my very first test, which just checks if the the return type of FizzBuzz is a string. Currently it isn't. Currently the function isn't returning anything. So what we need to do is write some code which fixes it. And this might seem a little bit contrived, but to get the hang of test-driven development, you really need to take baby steps to start with, and you might start skipping steps going forward. So here we've got return hello. That's a string. It will make the test pass. There we go. So our first real functional requirement here is to return fizz when the input is a multiple of 3. For that, we're going to write a test first, describe what the test is doing. This is just a step so that when you're debugging, you can see what's going on. So returns fizz when an input is a multiple of 3. Instead of type of, we're just going to be checking the FizzBuzz, pass in a number that's a multiple of 3, for example 3, and then equal to fizz, and then we're going to do that a couple of times with a bunch of other multiples of 3. Here we should see it failing. There you go. So the actual is in red, the expected is in green. It's actually seeing hello, whereas actually it's expecting fizz. So here we're going to keep this return value at the bottom and then do an if statement to return early. So I modulo 3 is equal to 0. What that's doing is it's checking that the remainder when you divide by 3 is 0, i.e. it is a multiple of 3. Then return fizz. And that test passed. We're happy. Our next functional requirement is to do the same with buzz and 5. So we're going to write our tests again. Here we've got changing that to buzz, change it to a multiple of 5. Then change what we're expecting to multiples of 5 again. So go 5 and 10. Get rid of the bottom one. And expect them to be equal to buzz. And this is very much a you do one, you test it, you do one, you test it. Well, sorry, you write one test, then you fix it. You write one test, then you fix it. You don't jump ahead. Because the whole point of test-driven development is you only write as much code as the requirements you're given kind of asks for. You don't write superfluous code. You don't write for edge cases that you haven't been asked to cater for. So here, our tests all pass. Next up, we need to make sure that the multiple of 3 and 5 returns FizzBuzz. So write a test for that again. Multiple of 3 and 5. And here we're just going to jump ahead because 15 is a multiple of 3 and 5, so it's 30. So we're going to write FizzBuzz here. Run the tests, make sure they fail. And the astute among you might see that it already says fizz, it doesn't say hello. That is a common bug that in interviews people stumble into. And the reason behind that is that, as we'll see, if we write the code, the test won't pass still. That's because it's hitting this first if statement and returning early. It's not evaluating the further if statements. So we just move that to the top and then the test will pass. Cool. The final requirement is to return the input as a string. So we'll write the test for that again. Just choose some numbers which aren't multiples of 3 or 5. Input as a string when input is not a multiple of 3 or 5. Just 14 and 31. Doesn't really matter what these numbers are as long as they are not multiples of 3 or 5. Make sure they are the number as a string. The test will fail because it's actually hitting the bottom return below, which currently still says hello. Just change that to i.toString or something like that. Your favorite way to change something into a string. And then the test will pass. Lovely stuff. So there are some edge cases that we have not catered for. For example, what happens when you pass in a negative number? What happens when you pass in a non-integer, like something that has a decimal point in it? Well, the entire point of test-driven development is that you don't cater for, out of the box, things you haven't been asked to. So our requirements at the top didn't ask us to cater for negative numbers. They didn't ask us to cater for non-integers. They only asked us to cater for these specific things. This is the point in an interview where you might say, well, what would you like me to do for negative numbers? What do you want me to do for non-integer values? And then you kind of have a discussion with the interviewer there, and it shows that you're paying attention. Basically, in short, your job as someone writing in TDD is not to second guess requirements. And yeah, this is basic TDD. You've written just as much code as the tests require for the tests to pass. To start with, that code looked a bit silly, but that's TDD for you. When you get more confident with TDD, it does make your coding much faster. It makes you write more efficient, or at the very least more concise and sensible and human-readable code. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed. Hope this was informative. See you next time.